For decades, inheriting a retirement account came with a quiet gift. You could stretch the withdrawals over your entire lifetime, letting the money grow and keeping the tax bill small. That gift is gone. Today, if you inherit an IRA, you may have just 10 years to empty the entire account, and every dollar of a traditional IRA comes out as taxable income. Worse, if the person you inherited from had already started their own required withdrawals, you may have to take money out every single year, with a 25% penalty for missing one. For someone who inherits in their peak earning years, this can stack a forced tax bill right on top of their salary. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how the 10-year rule works, the annual withdrawal most heirs don't know about, and why the timing of those withdrawals can matter more than the amount. Let's start with what actually changed. Before 2020, a non-spouse heir who inherited an IRA could use what's called the stretch, taking small required withdrawals spread over their own life expectancy, sometimes for 30 or 40 years. The account kept growing tax-deferred, and the yearly tax hit stayed small. Then came the Secure Act of 2019. For any IRA inherited after December 31st, 2019, that stretch was eliminated for most non-spouse beneficiaries. The new rule is blunt. The entire account must be emptied by December 31st of the 10th year after the original owner's death. 10 years. That's it. This hits the most common heirs of all: adult children, siblings, friends, most anyone who isn't a surviving spouse. There are a few exceptions, and we'll cover exactly who qualifies later. But for the typical adult child inheriting from a parent, the 10-year clock starts immediately, and compressing decades into 10 years is the first trap. Here's why the compression matters so much. Picture an account worth $500,000. Under the old stretch rules, that could have been drawn down slowly over 30 or 40 years, small slices, small tax bills, the rest still growing. Now squeeze that same $500,000 into a 10-year window. The slices are no longer small, and every dollar pulled from a traditional inherited IRA is taxed as ordinary income, added on top of whatever the heir already earns. So the money doesn't just come out faster. It comes out in much larger annual chunks, taxed at the heir's own rate, which is often higher than the original owner's was in retirement. Think about who typically inherits. Adult children, frequently in their 40s, 50s, or early 60s, their highest earning years. The stretch used to let them sip. The 10-year rule makes them gulp, exactly when their own income is already near its lifetime peak. That alone can push them into a higher bracket. But there's a second trap that the IRS spent 4 years arguing about, and most heirs still don't know the answer. When the 10-year rule first appeared, almost everyone assumed the same thing, that you could simply leave the money alone for 9 years and drain it all in year 10. For 4 years, even the IRS couldn't say for certain. Then, in 2024, the rules were finalized, and the answer hinges on one fact. If the original owner had already started taking their own required minimum distributions before they died, meaning they had reached their required beginning date, generally age 73, then the heir cannot just wait. The heir must take a required withdrawal every year, in years 1 through 9, and still empty the account by year 10. If the owner had not yet started their RMDs, there's no annual requirement. The heir can withdraw at any pace, as long as it's empty by year 10. Here's why this is dangerous right now. Many people who inherited back in 2020 or 2021 are mid-window today, and a lot of them never knew annual withdrawals applied. The IRS waived the penalty for missed withdrawals through 2024, but enforcement began in 2025. And the penalty for missing a required withdrawal is 25% of the amount you should have taken. It can drop to 10% if you fix it within 2 years, but 25% is the starting point. A rule most people didn't know existed, with a penalty most people can't afford to ignore. The good news is that this part is knowable in advance. Whether annual withdrawals apply comes down to a single question. Had the person you inherited from already started their own required distributions before they died? Answer that one question, and you know which set of rules you're living under for the next decade. Illustrative example, not financial advice. Picture an heir in her mid-50s, earning about $120,000 a year, near the top of her career. Her father passes away and leaves her a $500,000 traditional IRA. He had long since started his own required withdrawals. So two things are now true at once. She must empty that account within 10 years, and because her father had started his RMDs, she must take a withdrawal every year along the way. To clear it evenly, that's roughly $50,000 a year coming out of the inherited account, and every dollar lands on top of her existing $120,000 salary. That stacked income doesn't get taxed at her father's gentle retirement rate. It gets taxed at her rate, and a large chunk of it is pushed into the 22 or 24% bracket, possibly higher. In rough terms, that stacked withdrawal can cost her well over $10,000 a year in federal tax alone, and it repeats for a decade. Under the old stretch, this same money would have trickled out over 30 or 40 years, much of it later, after she retired and her own income had dropped into a lower bracket. The law didn't change how much she inherited. It changed when she's forced to take it, and that timing alone can cost tens of thousands of dollars over the full 10-year window. And that points to the trap inside the trap. The timing of withdrawals can matter more than the size of the account. Take two heirs who each inherit the same $500,000, both free to choose their pace. The first does nothing for 9 years, then drains the entire balance in year 10. That single year, $500,000 lands on top of their normal income, rocketing them into the highest brackets and potentially triggering other thresholds too. A Medicare surcharge, more of their Social Security taxed, a temporary surge in their effective rate. The second heir spreads the withdrawals evenly across all 10 years, smaller slices, lower brackets, far less waste. Same account, same rule. The difference in lifetime tax between those two choices can run into the tens of thousands of dollars. And here's the part that catches people. The natural instinct to leave it alone and deal with it later is usually the most expensive choice of all. The default is the trap. So what can you take from this, stated plainly? None of it personalized advice. First, not everyone is subject to the 10-year rule. The law carves out what it calls eligible designated beneficiaries: a surviving spouse, a minor child of the owner, someone disabled or chronically ill, or a beneficiary who is not more than 10 years younger than the person who died. These heirs can still stretch withdrawals over their life expectancy. Everyone else generally faces the 10 years. The surviving spouse has the most flexibility of all. A spouse can usually roll the inherited account into their own IRA and treat it as if it had always been theirs, sidestepping the 10-year clock entirely. That option belongs only to a spouse. For an adult child or any other heir, the clock is real and it's already running. Second, the type of account matters. An inherited Roth IRA also has to be emptied within 10 years, but it carries no annual withdrawal requirement, and qualified withdrawals come out tax-free. The pressure there is very different. Third, the single fact that decides whether annual withdrawals apply is whether the original owner had already begun their own RMDs. Knowing that one detail about the person you inherited from is the key to the entire calculation. And fourth, every one of these rules is public, published by the IRS, including the final 2024 regulations. What none of this is advice about your specific inheritance, your bracket, your timing, your account. That belongs with a qualified professional who can model it for you. What Greyrock does is show you the rule, the number, and the source, so the 10-year clock isn't something you discover in year 9. If you've inherited an account and no one walked you through any of this, you are far from alone. It's one of the least understood rules in the entire tax code. So here's a quick one. Did you inherit an account and not know this? Comment "inherited" below. I read them. And notice the whole annual withdrawal trap depends on whether the original owner had started their own required distributions. That rule, the RMD that quietly reshapes retirement, is the one on screen now. Watch it next.